Okay, let's unpack this for a second. When you decide to learn a new language, say English, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
Oh, it's always the same. Stacks of grammar books.
Right. Massive vocabulary lists. This feeling that you're just facing years of um, brute force memorization. We all have that default setting.
And that default setting, well, it turns out it might be the single biggest thing holding people back. We've been going through this guide on what they call slow English, and the research they point to suggests the total opposite.
The opposite how?
Forget the lists. Learners actually get fluent and much faster when they focus on meaningful stories, things they can connect with. And the key is that they're told slowly, clearly, and simply.
Which is perfect for you, the learner who is probably short on time, but really wants to make progress.
Yeah.
So for this deep dive, we're going to break down that old, overwhelming model. We're pulling out the core ideas from this material.
Right. It's a whole system built around stories, clear explanations, and these really targeted practice methods like shadowing.
So our mission today is pretty straightforward. We're going to pull out the three big learning techniques that make this whole thing tick.
And then we're going to show you how one deceptively simple story can actually be a complete toolkit for fluency. And surprisingly, for a little personal insight too, it's about moving from just, memorizing to actually understanding in context.
Okay, so let's start with the why, the science.
Mhm.
Why are stories so much better for our brains than, say, a straightforward word list? I mean, a list feels more efficient, right?
It does seem that way, but it's about how our brains are wired to store information long term. When you look at a list of words, you're really just activating the language centers of your brain.
Wernicke's area, Broca's area, that kind of thing.
Exactly. That and maybe some short term memory circuits. But a story lights up the whole brain. It's a completely different level of engagement.
What do you mean by the whole brain? What else is lighting up?
Well, if the story mentions a character walking through a park, your visual cortex activates. If they start running, your motor cortex starts to fire just a little.
So your brain is sort of simulating the experience.
Precisely. It's called semantic encoding. You're connecting a new word, not just to a definition, but to an image, a feeling, a movement. That connection makes the word sticky. You're not just memorizing English, you're experiencing it.
That's a powerful idea. You're building a whole network around the word, not just a single hook. So this whole method, it's built on three core techniques that really tap into that wiring. Let's define them just so everyone knows what we're talking about.
Absolutely. The first is probably the most well known in language learning today. It's comprehensible input.
Right. The idea that you learn best by listening to English you can mostly understand.
Yes. You don't need to know every single word. The context does the heavy lifting, letting you figure out the meaning without that feeling of anxiety or stress.
But doesn't that create a risk? I mean, if you're only listening, you could become a passive learner. You understand everything, but you can't actually produce the language yourself.
That is a fantastic point, and it's exactly where the other two techniques come in. They bridge that gap. The second one is shadowing.
And shadowing isn't just repeating a sentence after you hear it.
No, it's much more immediate. You're repeating the words at almost the same time as the speaker, like a vocal echo. You're right behind them.
Okay, I get what it is, but what's the specific benefit? Why is that better than just reciting a sentence from memory?
The benefits are all mechanical, and they're vital for fluency. Shadowing forces your mouth and your ears to pay attention to the music of the language, the rhythm, the intonation, how words linked together.
The little things native speakers do without thinking.
Exactly. It helps you bypass that mental step of translating in your head. It's physical training. You're literally building the muscle memory for speaking English naturally.
That makes a ton of sense.
Mhm.
So the final piece of the puzzle, the one that connects the story to the speaking practice, is pattern recognition.
Correct. This is where you deliberately pull out common sentence structures from the story, chunks of language. So instead of learning words, you're learning formulas.
So instead of thinking, I want to go,
Yeah.
you learn the whole chunk, like I decided to, or what if I?
Yes, and you practice that chunk until it's automatic. It lets you build your own sentences fluidly without having to stop and think about grammar rules. You just retrieve the pattern you need.
Okay, so we have the toolkit, comprehensible input for understanding, shadowing for the physical practice, and pattern recognition for building sentences automatically. Let's see it in action with the story they use. It's called The Morning I Changed My Life.
And what I love about this story is how simple it is on the surface, but it's packed with the most common English words, high frequency grammar, and tons of natural expressions. It's the perfect piece of comprehensible input.
So we start with a protagonist who's completely stuck in a routine. The story sets that up right away. Wake up, work, home, dinner, TV, bed. You can feel the monotony.
Yes, and that repetition is key for the learner too. You see those daily verbs over and over, but the emotional hook is that line. Every day felt the same. And the turning point, it isn't some huge dramatic event, it's quiet, internal. It happens on a Monday morning.
Right. They just wake up a little earlier than usual. And in that quiet moment with that extra time, they ask themselves that one simple but massive question.
Am I happy?
Am I happy? And that question just shatters the comfort of the routine.
It does. And the decision that comes next is so important, both for the story's message and for the learning process. They don't do anything drastic. They don't quit their job.
No big announcement.
No. They just say to themselves, today I will try something new. And the guide really emphasizes this. Big changes start with one small choice.
And that choice is just walking to work instead of taking the bus. And that simple act of slowing down changes everything. They pass this little park they've always seen but always ignored.
Before, the thought was always, I'm too busy. But this time, something shifts. And the thought is, why not? And they walk in.
And that's the moment. They sit on a bench, and for the first time in what feels like years, they're not rushing. The story describes their shoulders relaxing, their breath slowing down, this feeling of being present.
Right, being mentally in that moment and that feeling of relief, that's the kind of emotional anchor that makes the new vocabulary stick.
It's while they're sitting there being present that the main event happens. The little girl nearby, she's playing, and her red balloon, it just slips from her hand.
It sails up into the sky. And the girl, of course, starts crying. She's heartbroken.
And this is the protagonist's first real spontaneous action. They don't try to solve the problem directly. Instead, they reframe it.
Love this part. They just point up at the sky and tell the little girl her balloon isn't gone. It's going on an adventure.
The father is relieved, the girl is comforted, and the protagonist. When they finally get up to leave, the story says they felt lighter.
Yes, emotionally lighter, unburdened, not stressed. And their coworkers even notice it. They get to the office and people say, you look different today. There's a different energy about you.
So the lesson from the story is really clear. Big changes start with small steps. One new choice, one moment of courage, which is such a great metaphor for language learning, too.
It is. You don't need some massive breakthrough. You just need to make one small, consistent choice every day.
Okay, so that's the narrative. It's powerful. But now let's put on our other hats. How do you turn that story into a practical fluency lesson?
This is where the guide gets really clever. It moves directly from that emotional resonance to utility. Because you've already experienced the story, you have context for everything. So when they highlight a word like present, you don't just get a definition, you get the feeling behind it.
Let's talk about some of the words they pull out. Take routine. Most people know what that means. Why focus on it?
Because it's a core concept. They define it simply, the things you do every day in the same order. But then they immediately put it into practice sentences. I broke my routine today, or my morning routine is simple. It becomes a building block.
And what about a word like present? It's defined as to be mentally in the moment. In the story, it's a state of being, not just a time.
Exactly. And the example they give is meditation helps me feel present. So it connects an abstract idea to a real world action. They do the same with the phrase like slip from your hand. It's so much more natural than just saying the balloon fell.
It's a fluency enhancer. It adds that descriptive quality.
Right. And then you have the emotional vocabulary, like light, which is defined as feeling free, not stressed, not heavy. It gives you the words to describe these complex internal states with simple language.
And all of this vocabulary then feeds directly into the fluency practice section. This is where the pattern recognition comes in.
Yes, this is the engine room. They take grammatical structures from the story and have you practice them over and over. For example, the pattern, I decided to.
Right. So you would practice, I decided to walk, I decided to slow down, I decided to sit on the bench.
Exactly. It locks in that past tense structure for talking about your own decisions. They do the same with patterns for time, like contrasting every morning I with that morning I.
Which is so useful for storytelling. The difference between a habit and a specific event.
It's fundamental. And they also practice cause and effect patterns. When I walked to work, I noticed the park. Because I stopped, I saw the little girl. This trains your brain to connect ideas logically in a sentence. It turns a grammar rule into muscle memory.
And after all that practice, the shadowing, the pattern drills, the final challenge is to listen to the fast version of the story.
Exactly. After working with the slow version, you test yourself against the natural full speed audio. It's the ultimate test to see if you can keep up, if you've truly internalized the language. It's the measure of your progress.
So when we pull all this together, the big so what here is that this method is just. It's incredibly efficient. It avoids that cognitive overload of trying to memorize a dictionary.
It's the combination of the three things. The story gives you emotional context so you remember better. The shadowing builds the physical ability to speak smoothly. And the pattern practice gives you the tools to build your own sentences automatically. It really is faster than most people expect.
It's a perfect system for you, the learner, who needs knowledge that is quick, deep, and actually useful in the real world. You're not just learning English vocabulary, you're learning about life through English.
The whole point is that small, consistent efforts lead to huge results. I mean, think about the protagonists in the story. They found this incredible sense of freedom just by making one tiny change to their day.
That's a great point. So if committing to one small change like walking to work can completely rewrite your daily experience, what new story could you start writing for yourself? What happens if you commit to just one new learning pattern, one new word, and practice it in context every day until it becomes second nature? How fast can you write your own fluent story? That's the real question.